Every year, the world's biggest fighting game tournament also comes to Japan and becomes EVO Japan. And you're probably wondering, is this an event that's fun? Should I travel all the way to Japan to experience it? What is it like when you actually get there? I'm going to try and share my experiences from this event. This year, it was EVO Japan 2025. Let's get into it. Let's have a swig of coffee. First of all, I want to say that I really enjoyed EVO Japan. I know that it's a wildly different experience to EVO World, which is held in Las Vegas and has been running for a much longer time than EVO Japan, but events in Japan are a little bit different. What I'm really grateful to for EVO, and like calling it EVO Japan, is that it definitely feels like they're trying to incorporate the vibe of Western events, where it's like, yeah, it's a tournament, but it's also just a giant party. You know, there's an arcade stick museum to look at. There's going to be booths for you to go and buy stuff at. There's going to be cosplay. If you're just showing up with someone because your partner happens to play fighting games, you're going to have a good time. There's going to be stuff for you to do. On that topic, I'll just talk about my experience as a player and also taking pictures. So firstly, as a player, I feel like it was run quite well this year. In previous years, I've had a fairly good experience, but that's because I understand Japanese. I feel like sometimes foreign players come over to Japan and then like the people running the brackets, sometimes they didn't understand English very well, or they couldn't pronounce certain names. I think maybe sometimes like players didn't get called for their matches, so they missed out on their match. Like, I think there were issues like that, but I feel like a large amount of that was ironed out this year. I lost both of my matches, so I went 0-2, but I did make my opponents sweat in the second set, so I was kind of proud of that. But there was one criticism I heard a lot from other players, and it was that the venue was too hot. Being a person who often goes to Tokyo Game Show and other events in Japan, like, I'm quite used to it always being like this. So maybe my standards, my bar is just too low as a result. But Japan events are almost always too hot, and I've just kind of learned to accept it. But as I gather, events like that, knowing from who I spoke to, they say that EVO World is not like that. There's much better air conditioning. So be aware, if you're coming over to Japan for EVO Japan, it probably will be a lot hotter than you expect. So if you do wear clothing that's long sleeved, make sure you've got like another layer underneath, which is like, I don't know, a t-shirt or a tank top or just something that can help you stay cool. They called my name, I played my match, I waited around, I played my second match. They didn't really instruct me that now that I was 0-2 that I could just leave the tournament and go somewhere. I would like better instructions like that, because I understood that I was knocked out of the tournament, but I think someone who had never played in the tournament before probably needs a bit more hand-holding. So I think that aspect for absolute new beginners could be better, especially as Street Fighter 6 has brought in so many people who have obviously never been to a tournament before. I'm not saying like they did things wrong, but if I had never been in a tournament before and only played Street Fighter 6 for the past, I don't know, 3 months because I heard about it on Steam and I showed up to EVO Japan, I would very much like my hand to be held. I'd like people to say, okay, you've lost both your matches, that was the loser's bracket, now you're out, you should probably just enjoy the rest of the event and go for a walk because you don't have any more matches. I think the assumption in the fighting game community that everyone understands how Smash GG, or what it's called now, Start GG, I think assuming that everyone knows how to use these websites like Challenge and all that, like that everyone already knows, but that is one of the main, I would say, areas of improvement for the fighting game community, is this assumption that everyone already understands. Which brings me on to my second point. Before I start talking about the photography aspect of the event, I want to talk about the social aspect of EVO Japan. We did have booths where you could go and you could look at arcade sticks, you could test out the latest stuff. There were some booths that had like merch, mostly fighting game related merch, obviously. But apart from shopping and playing in the tournament, it's not 100% clear what you're supposed to do if you don't know anyone. And I'm willing to bet that more than half of the people who showed up probably didn't know anyone else apart from the people they showed up with. Now, what's different for me is that I've been running this YouTube channel for like, I don't know, over a decade now. It's probably like 13 or 14 years. So it's quite guaranteed that I will bump into someone that I know through these YouTube video reviews. So personally, every time I was kind of on my own walking around randomly, someone would bump into me and they're like, hey, are you that guy from YouTube? I kept thinking to myself, if I weren't a YouTuber, would I have enjoyed this event? I don't actually know if I would have enjoyed EVO Japan as a solo player. I think what would have happened would be I would have shown up maybe at 9 a.m. just to walk around the event when it was my tournament match, which I think for me was at 2:45, you're probably going to lose twice, which means that your whole tournament experience will probably be over within 35 minutes. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll walk around the event and see what else is going around. And, you might sit down and watch a few matches, but I think if you're a solo player, you'd be like, is this fun? I'm not sure if this is fun. And I think this comes back to the assumption that the fighting game community is great. Everybody is friends with everyone. It's so welcoming. And at certain events, and if it's run a certain way, I think that can happen. And especially with certain communities being already quite tightly knit, they already meet at local events. But when you think about the number of people who probably started a game like Street Fighter 6 or Guilty Gear Strive, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising, there's definitely going to be people coming from mobile games, people coming from mobile online battle arenas, people coming over from just traditional fighting games, cosplay. The opportunity is so great for bringing a huge number of new people in, and I think it's really important to not burn them. Like, I don't think people would have had a bad experience, but I think probably especially this year with Street Fighter 6 with 7,800 players in the Street Fighter 6 bracket, I was really hoping that there would be a lot more hand-holding and hopefully better retention. I don't want to see like 2026 EVO Japan being like, okay, we've went from like 7,800 players down to like, I don't know, 1,500 or 2,000, which would still be great. Like, as a fighting game player, I know that those are fantastically good numbers still, but it's like, wow, look at this momentum. What if we just kept going? And instead of dropping back down to like 2,000 players, what if we continued to get bigger and we had 10,000 players in the Street Fighter 6 pools? I don't know. That could be amazing. It also sounds like a nightmare, but it could be amazing. I don't know what the solution is specifically. I can definitely think of a few ideas, but it feels like after you've played your tournament bit, you're just going to walk around and be like, okay, well, I think I've seen all the booths here and I'm not in the tournament anymore, so maybe I'll just skip day 2 and I'll just come back on day 3. And even then, like, I only really want to watch the Tekken final or the Street Fighter final, so I'll only be there for a couple hours. Maximize the retention so that everyone shows up at 9 a.m. on day 1, they stay until 8 p.m. on day 1, and then they come back in the morning, and they have stuff to do. They've got casuals to play, they should understand where the casuals are going to be. There should be tournaments that they could join in, even if they didn't sign up online like 3 days before or a week before. I should be able to just walk into the event and be like, I have no idea what's going on, and someone should be able to just like reach over to me and be like, hey, you look like maybe you're free at the moment. Are you interested in joining this tournament? We're going to pair you up with someone. If I didn't know anyone at the event, I would have just walked around and gone, okay, well, I played my matches. I think I might just go home, or I might just go to Akihabara. Which brings me on to another point of the social aspect. Something fun is going on, but it's like, where? I know that Giuna runs a party. I went to the party last year. I was invited by Doc Fugu to join a Yakata Bune, which is this special boat which goes around the rivers of Tokyo, and you just take pictures of Skytree and the Fuji building. It's beautiful, but again, that's just an event that I knew about. He just invited people that he already knew, and he said, are you interested in this? And I think that could only fit like a maximum of 20 people on that boat. You know that if you show up to this tournament, you're likely to meet people who are like-minded, people who at least like the same game as you. You might be able to like strike up a friendship. It would be nice if it was obvious where the big party was going to be for everyone who wasn't part of the small parties. That's something like Tokyo Game Show. I think when I went as press, there was like a press mixer that they ran at the end of the event, and like everyone who showed up as press for that event was able to like hang out and meet other members of the press. And that was fantastic to know that there is an event that I can go to even if I don't know people there. To put it simply, I would like there to have been a very obvious big end of event party, something that anyone is allowed to show up to. The issue, of course, is that what venue can actually hold 8,000 people at a time? I recognize that it's complicated. I just think it would be nice if there was a way to make it more social for people who showed up by themselves. So there's playing in the tournament, then there's the social aspect, and because this year I'm so interested in photography, brought my cameras, and I actually spent most of my time walking around just trying to get as good a photo, just understanding more about esports photography. So what I brought with me is my Sony a7C II with a 24 to 50 zoom. It's not a very big zoom range. Basically, I use it as a 50mm prime that can kind of zoom out wide if I need to. And I also brought this sort of more zoomed in portrait lens, which is 85mm. On top of this camera, I had my GoPro filming so that I could do like POV video stuff. And also I had this, which is a new addition. This is a Fuji XM5, and it's just easier to have a small camera if I didn't have my hands free to carry a giant full frame all the time. Now, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail about photography. I have a separate channel where I talk about more art-related stuff. Tournaments are crowded. It's not crowded everywhere, but where the brackets are being run, those areas can be crowded, like to the point that you can't even walk down the gap between the two tables. If you want to get a photo of people playing a certain match, like you need to find like a gap. Even if you have a long lens, you want to take a picture from far away, you kind of can't, because there's just people blocking you. Like looking at the bracket, knowing where the big players are going to be, knowing exactly which table they're going to set, and just camping out there. If you're the press photographer, if you're the esports photographer of the day, you need to be sat at that table like an hour before the match begins. Maybe not an hour, but you need to be there way before the match begins, because people are going to show up and crowd out, and you won't have space to take pictures if you show up like when the match begins. But outside of taking like nice close-ups of people while they're in the heat of battle, I also just walked around the event and just took some cool pictures. There's always going to be fun scenes of, you know, people interacting with each other, having a fun chat on the side, or getting ready to play a match. One cool thing that does happen when you do esports photography is you start to realize how much light comes off the screens onto the players' faces. Like normally when you take a portrait of someone, you've got like the sunlight, it bounces off something and it hits them, and then, you know, you take the picture. But like in esports photography, like if you take a picture 1 millisecond later, it might be after the super begins. It'll be like a big orange flash of fire from the monitor onto the player's face. Could massively change the photo, but at the same time, esports photos always look really cool because there's a wide variety of colors coming off the monitor onto the players' faces. I'd also say that doing some esports photography was a lot of fun because it gave me something to do and not just walk around idly. Maybe because I went by myself, that's my fault for not just like bringing a crew of friends with me. But if I hadn't had my camera, I would have felt like I was walking around like, oh, I wish I had friends, I shouldn't have shown up by myself. But because I had my camera, I always had something to do. But I think those are the main things I wanted to talk about today. I think that the idea of like turning it into more of a fun convention with a tournament attached, well, I mean, obviously the main point is the tournament, like to make it more like fun for people who are like finished with their matches or just came as spectators. I think they're working on that slowly, and I'm hoping that it will just get better and better. Maybe this is just me because I have, like, I know this may sound crazy, but like, I have a bit of social anxiety. Like, it's kind of like, should I like talk to new people? Do they want me to be here? Am I like getting in the way? Am I interrupting this person's this conversation? Like, there's so many reasons why a person may think this is going to be a fun social opportunity for me, and then walk away going like, in the end, I wasn't able to talk to anyone. I feel like probably an overwhelming majority of people, even if they're not like fully conscious of it, they may have finished the event going like, okay, well, I mean, I don't know if I'll go again. Like, it was fun to take part in the tournament, but like, I didn't walk away with as many lasting memories as it seems like all the famous people, like they go and they meet, and they're meeting with friends that they've known for like the past 15, 20 years in the fighting game community. But especially thinking about Street Fighter 6 and all the new people coming in, I feel like it would be so powerful if EVO Japan led the way and showed how to bring new people in from all sorts of different communities, like, you know, MOBAs or puzzle games or fighting games or cosplay, or brought all these people together and gave them like really great opportunities to break the ice, make new friends, introduce their names to each other, and just like walk away with like, oh, I made a connection today that I'm probably gonna keep for the rest of my life. That's like a really powerful message, but at the moment I think it's more of just like an ideal. It just sounds like this idealized version of the fighting game community. You could just as easily walk away from the event having met like no one, and that you know, is through no one's fault at all. It's just like, that's just how it is. I could absolutely talk more about EVO Japan for the next hour or so. Maybe I should have done a live stream. Maybe that would have made more sense. But hopefully this has given you some food for thought if you're interested in EVO Japan. And I don't know if this has helped at all, but I just wanted to share my experiences with you. And also, you know, it was a good opportunity to take some pictures. So hopefully I was able to show you some of the cool pictures I was able to take. Highly recommend coming to Japan anyway, even if you're not thinking of going to EVO Japan. It's a fantastic country. There's a lot to see here, and there's a lot to do. But if you are a fighting gamer, it seems that EVO Japan is just going to continue to run around the sort of April, May time. So if you are thinking like, I've always wanted to go to Japan, I highly recommend like taking some time off work around April so that you can enjoy the sakura, like the cherry blossom season, and maybe if you can stay long enough that you're also here when EVO Japan also runs, then like just, you know, I don't want to say kill two birds with one stone, but you know what I mean. Like you can like attack both things at the same time. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Definitely check out my old vlogs from other previous EVO Japans if you're interested to see and compare how things have changed over time. I've been NihongoGamer. I'll see you real soon.